A year ago tonight, the president said he was ready to strike Syria, but not without first getting the okay from Congress. Tonight, he's ready to strike Syria yet again, but this time, the hell with Congress. Not quite, but the president's not the only one who's changed. So is Congress, because he's not the only one okay with doing what he's doing now. So is Congress. For now, just ask Ohio Republican Senator Rob Portman. Senator, is that about right?
Well, look, I think the president has the authority to react to the ISIS threat immediately. One thing that I have not liked is the administration. You know what? We'd like to act and be more aggressive, but we can't because Congress won't give us the authorization. I believe he has authorization, both in terms of the Iraq authorization we've already provided, but also as Commander-in-Chief, to deal with an imminent threat to our national security. I don't want them using the excuse that Congress won't act, not to do what has to be done, to degrade and destroy ISIS. So that's the position that I've taken.
Do you think that it's any different now that we know who we're backing and helping versus last year? Because the argument, as your colleague Rand Paul has mentioned, is that if we had acted a year ago, as Hillary Clinton supposedly wanted, we would have been essentially creating ISIS running Syria. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't, because I think that the Free Syrian Army was a stronger and better organized force a year ago. It certainly was a couple years ago when I was over there talking to folks, and at that time I encouraged the United States to provide the kind of weapons they needed to be successful. The problem is that over time we have not provided that kind of support that they need, and other groups have gotten support, so they've become weaker. So part of the challenge now, frankly, it's a lot messier than it would have been a year ago or 2 years ago, Neil, but a lot of the challenge now is how do we ensure there is a fighting force on the ground in Syria that in conjunction with our airstrikes can be effective against ISIS.
Do you think airstrikes alone would do it, Senator? There are others who are arguing, including your independent colleague from Maine, that you're not going to need boots on the ground. He's not so sure it would involve American boots, but it's going to involve somebody's boots.
Yeah, look, I'd like to think airstrikes would be all we would need to do, and it would be easier in some respects as Americans to face up to this challenge, but I think it's going to be tougher than that. And this is why it's so essential that we have a coalition, including the Kurds on the ground, the Iraqi military on the ground, and in Syria some boots on the ground, not Americans, but others. And that's one reason we do need to continue to train and equip a group of more moderate elements willing to take on the fight against ISIS. And those groups are there, and those countries are there in the region. As you can imagine, if you're in the region, you're very concerned about this, a lot more concerned than any place else in the world, because you see ISIS as a threat to your very existence. So I think we're going to have to go through a process now that is more difficult than it would have been if the administration had not been in denial. I believe they were in denial as the storm clouds were gathering, as the threat grew, and therefore we're in a tougher position than we would have been in. If we had left this residual force in Iraq and the intelligence and the special ops and the trainers, it'd be different. If we had acted in Syria, it would have been different. But we are where we are, Neil. So I think it's necessary. Okay. It's necessary for us to act, and I don't want the president using as an excuse. Well, gosh, I'd love to win a deal with this threat, but Congress won't let me. The president needs to show leadership.
And we shall see.
Both with
we shall
regard
see
to our
tonight,
allies and our
Senator.
enemies.
Thank you. We're all over tonight, 8 p.m.